Welcome into another edition of the Kevin and Jason Show. I'm one of your hosts today, Kevin Misseri, here with Jason Shannon going over this big Bills versus Browns game where the Bills are under 3-point underdogs here in Cleveland to a 2-6 Browns team to a 6-2 Bills team. Pretty disrespectful, but it's the state of the league and the state of where people think the Bills are at, even with a 6-2 record. We're going into some key matchups, what the Browns look like on paper, what they look like through some analytics and other sites, as well as some of their key stats and nuggets as we look at this thing, going through really their roster and comparing it to this Bills game. It's a pretty big AFC game regardless of their records, and it will be in Cleveland. Lots of Bills fans will be there. So it's a pretty important midseason game. Jason, how you doing today?
I am good. I started getting cold at the Redskins game, and I continue to be cold as it's about 30 degrees here. Just how we like it here in Buffalo.
Yeah, same in Cleveland, I'm sure. Gearing up. Next one I'm attending is the Ravens game in the 7th of December or something around there. So gearing up for that cold weather. And then there's that Broncos game pinched in the middle of all this. That's going to happen soon. So lots going on here. Bills traveling to Cleveland, always not a terrible place when you see it on your schedule. I do have some similar rowdy-ish fans. Have been there a couple of times, Jason. Not quite the tailgate experience you see in Buffalo, but when you see it on your schedule as an away game, it's 3 hours. You can get there quickly. From Buffalo, it's not going to take a lot of travel or a lot of time to acclimate yourself. So it's never like a terrible bad road game. So especially when you get some fans there too.
I was thinking about it, and I was thinking, you know what, with the way our record is and, the optimism that we still should have and the way that their season's kind of gone down the crapper, I was thinking, this should be a really good Bills presence. But I actually do think it really hurts the fact that we just did 3 straight home games. And coming into this, I don't know if people want to travel 3 hours to go to basically a 4th straight home game. I went to that game and coming off the Miami, and everybody was really juiced up off the Miami game. I'm assuming people are really juiced up about the Philadelphia game, even then after a loss. And I think I just noticed a lot of tired faces against Washington, and I don't think we're going to have quite as big of a presence, especially people that just bought 3 straight, home game tickets that are.
People love road games. They'll sell their tickets to Eagles fans, but they'll go on the road.
Yeah, I don't like it that much. And Cleveland's an interesting place, but I do think a lot of people use the road game on going to Nashville this year. I think that was a popular spot and a much better city than Cleveland.
Yeah, we'll have to see. The benefit is you can get your college kids and some other cheaper experience to Nashville. You can jump in the car pretty much the night before, grab a cheap hotel, and do the whole thing. Come home Sunday. The Browns, I was on the Browns podcast over there with Jack McCurry over on his Gridiron podcast, and they were predicting 25 to 33% Bills fans. So
it'll be 20.
Yeah, I would probably say low 20s too. But I think that they're basing on their secondary market. Browns fans pretty much selling 2-6. I mean, they need a mega run. They have a silently weak schedule beside really this Bills games and a Ravens game. I think they still have Cleveland twice or Cincinnati twice and Pittsburgh twice over there. So I don't know that they're better than Pittsburgh, but they have a means to an end if they went on like a mega duper super duper run and the AFC kind of fell out. But it starts here. I mean, this is it for them. If they can't beat the Bills, that's one wild card spot out. And they'd have to win the rest just to get to 9-7. So this is do or die. Their fans aren't too optimistic. They claim that Bills fans and Bills media are more negative about this game than they are there in Cleveland. Jason, we're going to start here with the potentially deadly Cleveland offense, or we're supposed to be, led by Baker Mayfield, who's struggled at times. He's got a terrible touchdown to interception ratio right now. He's struggling in the red zone mightily. He goes on bad stretches. He's missing open receivers. He's not throwing to Odell Beckham at the end of games for some reason, throwing to double cover Jarvis Landry. They do get Kareem Hunt back. I struggle to see him make a difference this week, but he could down the stretch here shortly. Don't have a tight end. Ricky Seals-Jones is on the injury report, not likely to play after, and then that's already with David Njoku. on the injured reserve. So, they're not going to get much from that. They have a very below average offensive line. And then, headed by their Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham Jr. receiving core with some talent behind that, but not used at all. So what are your thoughts on this Browns offense? We know they run the ball particularly well, but what do you see from this Browns offense, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I think they've been able to run really well and just utilize Nick Chubb in a way that I'm not even sure that I thought they'd be able to, considering sort of where this line started at the beginning of the year, with Eric Kush starting and, having to trade for White Teller, who we were going to cut basically before the year. It wasn't looking good for them, and they have struggled in some senses, but they've still gotten, Nick Chubb going with over 100 yards a game so far. I think Kareem Hunt will help. As much as he's been, hasn't been in games, I have to imagine he's been keeping in shape. And I think back to his first game of his career in 2017 against the Patriots, where he just tore him up, and he really tore up a team that wasn't expecting his sort of versatility and the way he's able to, really make plays in space. And we should have tape on him, but we don't have tape on him as a Brown. And, I hope that they at least keep in mind that he could be part of the plan. Even if I was the Browns, I would still be leaving Chubb as the main person in my arsenal, taking, 75% of the carries. But considering what we saw against Jordan Howard and Miles Sanders of the Eagles, and then Adrian Peterson from Washington, neither of those running games being the top of the league or really being nearly as talented as Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt,
right?
I have to imagine that that's the way they're going to beat us. I'm not that worried about OBJ having a ridiculous game. I think he might have a big play or two in him, but in general, he's been pretty much a 5-catch-a-game receiver at this point. So, if I'm worried about anything, it's going to be the running game, even despite, some of the inconsistencies that they have across the offensive line in several positions.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they've had to go to Wyatt Teller, benching a poor Eric Kush. Chris Hubbard has struggled. Justin McCray in his time has struggled to trade from Green Bay. They're playing Greg Robinson now. J.C. Tretter's been a pretty solid center. Joel Bitonio's fine at guard when he's kind of banged up right now, but should be able to go. It's just not clicking. I mean, Freddie Kitchens could be one and done there. There's just a lot of chatter. I've been told that from the Cleveland people, if they lose the Bills game and then have a Pittsburgh game, they're going to replace their yearly coach after the Pittsburgh game, which I guess has happened many times there. So if they lose the next 2 games, Bills, Pittsburgh, we'll have to see what happens there in Cleveland. It's just train wreck. And a lot of people are saying Ken Zampese had a lot to do with Baker Mayfield's first, stretch as a quarterback. He's been gone to the AFL or whatever it was called. AAF, yeah. And for, I guess, leading a good Baker Mayfield as a quarterback coach to no job is interesting to me. I couldn't imagine why there's plenty of teams that he could put on his resume, had most rookie touchdown passes, and I can't believe that no one would be interested, but it is what it is. So their offense, great running back. They seem to block well, run block, struggle in pass protection. Particularly struggle from the right side of their line with Wyatt Teller now and Chris Hubbard, not very good there. So, their left defensive end, which is, Trent Murphy in this case, and, Jordan Phillips is in there, and they're going to be able to have a field day there. Maybe you're going to see an Ed Oliver on Wyatt Teller at times. So there might be some room there. Jerry Hughes has a beatable matchup with Greg Robinson. So there's wins there on the Bills' defensive line. Taron Johnson's going to have his hand full with Jarvis Landry. We saw what the Jets did in Week 1 with what did Crowder have? 14 catches for 98 yards or something.
Yeah, I think it was 14 for 99.
Okay. The Bills will give it up. I told them in Cleveland that the Bills will give you 6 yards. Levi Wallace will drop back, and if he's covering Callaway or whatever at that point, similar to Preston Williams, Levi Wallace is going to give up 6 to 7 yards. They don't think Mayfield's going to be patient enough all game to just take that throw like Ryan Fitzpatrick was. So we're going to have to watch that. And obviously the marquee matchup on the other side, Trey White versus Odell Beckham Jr. is I don't want to call it one for the ages in a combined 500 record game here in an 8-8 game between the two teams. But I think it's going to be a pretty solid football matchup in this one, Trey White and Odell Beckham Jr. And with the way Mayfield's playing, I mean, it's advantage Trey White at this point, but Odell Beckham does Odell Beckham things and can stretch the defense in a hurry. But that's not including the Bills' great safety combo of Hyde and Poyer that are going to take that away. They're going to give you that Jarvis Landry for 6. I mean, Jarvis Landry's been doing this against the Bills for how many years now where they just let him do it. So I envision that's what's going to happen. They let Crowder do it and Preston Williams to an extent and others. So it's going to happen. And they're going to stop the run and stop Odell Beckham Jr. But I think Landry and if they use another receiver, which to this point they haven't, are going to be able to get theirs. Jason, is that kind of how you see McDermott doing this thing?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't use Trey White to shadow somebody really all season until Terry McLaurin. Interestingly enough, I guess they really thought that he was the only option.
He was like their best player.
Yeah, and I don't doubt it. I think he's going to be a Pro Bowler someday, but that was really the first time they decided to do that. I wonder if they'll actually do that when they bring him into the slot, because OBJ, I think I saw a stat that he's still taking 22 to 25% of his snaps in the slot, even despite
they're gonna
Landry.
follow him.
I think that might be their opportunity to try to get Trey White off of him and get Taron Johnson on him, which would then become a mismatch in that sense. Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the problem.
What do they do with Jarvis? Do they pop him outside? Do they make him an X receiver?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's nobody else to put out there. I mean, he's played a small amount of X in his career ineffectively. But like, if you're gonna do that and be able to actually get that matchup, why not do it? I mean, I would still say that OBJ is the guy you want on one of the lesser cornerbacks. But yeah, I would expect him to follow him around. And then, there's a lot of talk that maybe this is a game that Rashard Higgins comes back in. He missed a lot of the season after the first game. Still only has 3 catches for 48 yards for the year. They expected really big things out of him, and he might be playing outside receiver because it seems like they're kind of tired of Antonio Callaway again for like the 4th time in his 2-year career. So, I think if they had a good, capable quarterback or coach and offensive coordinator and system, I think they could scheme a way to maybe make things disadvantageous for the Bills. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to do that this year. And yeah, I think that was really good insight that you had about, what you had with the Browns guys on the podcast talked about, where Baker he might get impatient with this team, and
he has all season.
So, yeah, and you definitely see him. I've watched most of their games. Every play of most of the Browns games all year, and he starts a lot of games looking competent and looking like he did before, and he's firing passes, and you understand why he is in the position that he's in right now, why he was so lauded, and then he just gets into a stretch where I don't know if it's boredom or he's still not seeing things quite there, and he throws a pick, and then he throws a second one, and whatever. He had a 3-pick fourth quarter a couple weeks ago. I mean, 7 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, really having the opposite season of Josh Allen, as he told me offline before, just not being patient enough, and maybe some bad coaching, maybe his head's just not in it. But it's interesting because you do, for large stretches of games, see the Baker Mayfield that you were expecting to see, and then just some train wreck quarters that have really derailed him. And obviously that's the type of thing you want to capitalize on when you have a really good secondary.
Yeah, he's been awful since the Baltimore win. In the last 5 weeks, 4 weeks, he got a San Francisco, Seattle, New England, Denver stretch, which are at least 4 good defenses. So, obviously Denver has its challenges offensively, but
no, that's like a top 10 defense still. I
right.
mean, that is a tough stretch to his credit. I mean,
and then he has the Bills, which
Baltimore.
once again, they're similar in the Denver mold, which is another good defense, and might be a little further along than Denver, especially offensively. But it's just another stretch for this. It's another tough game, and then into a Pittsburgh defense, which is good too. So they've played some challenged offenses, but they played some really good, including Baltimore. They played the Rams too. So they went to a Rams, Baltimore, San Francisco, Seattle, New England, Denver, Buffalo, Pittsburgh stretch. I mean,
it's rough. And
it's rough.
I really do believe that there are going to be some wacky things that happen in the second half of the year, because there were some just crazy unbalanced schedules. And in most of those cases, there's, the opposite schedule on the other half. You look at the schedules that us in New England had at the first half. There's going to be some tough teams on the second half of those schedules. And then there's, I believe I heard Jacksonville has something of a cakewalk stretch after Nick Foles is coming in for the second half of the year.
So does Oakland too. So does Oakland. They're the other one.
Oakland. And they're really, I really do think that this Bills team is going to finish 10-6 or 11-5. The thing I worry about is that people are overestimating how bad these AFC teams are based on the schedules or how they started the season or whatnot, because teams like the Colts and the Jaguars, Texans, Raiders, Chiefs, etc., might have comebacks in them and have reasons to be optimistic based on the schedules or how injuries are lining up or whatever. And man, I'd love to get another win and bury one of those teams right now in the Browns, who I'm taking less seriously than all of those teams, but they're kind of right back in the mix with us if they get a win here.
Yeah, and the Oakland-LA game right now, Chargers game, is two of the teams that you've mentioned or should be mentioned. Oakland's winning at the end of the first quarter 10-0 there. They're 4-4. LA's 4-5, so they're kind of competing for that rights to be in there.
Who gets to stay in this thing?
Who gets to stay in this thing? And Oakland just keeps sticking around. I mean, they're kind of like the Bills, and they're losing to good teams and beating bad teams. They beat the Colts and the Bears. They've lost to the Packers, Texans. They beat the Lions and Broncos, lost to the Chiefs. So you're right. I mean, the Browns just didn't have the kind of luck that Oakland had. I mean, that's a pretty poor schedule too. And the Browns had a really tough stretch, and specifically a tough defensive stretch. And their offensive numbers show. I mean, Baker Mayfield's been terrible against good defenses. And he has another one in the Bills who are going to play a lot of zone and confuse him. He's been bad against zone coverage. As told to me by the Cleveland people. He's fine against man. Odell will beat man. And he seems to be really good with man beaters and in that scenario. And he's also been, here's the other thing, he's been really bad with a clean pocket. So I guess he's good when blitzed. And if you're bad when you have a clean pocket, that's the Bills' motto. Whereas quarterbacks like Ryan Fitzpatrick are good with a clean pocket, and also Carson Wentz really good with a clean pocket. So if you're going to be bad with a clean pocket and bad against zone defense, it's called the Trevor Siemian. It's called the Bills play those specifically really well. They're not going to blitz a lot. Leads right into the Bills' hand.
If you just want us to get into coverage, we'll do that all day.
And he's bad against it.
We have the horses to play that game for sure.
So leads into the Bills' hands. So I think there's a lot that match up for the Bills in that. So if he's bad against a clean pocket, Bills are going to take advantage of that. They really only have two receivers and a running back, and we'll see what happens with Kareem Hunt. I mean, Damian Ratley's a guy that's pseudo their second receiver, who now back to Callaway. Both of those guys have 8 catches, both of them for about 100 yards. Ratley has 103, Callaway has 89. And no tight end presence really at this point, not really playing Higgins at this point, and a very below average offensive line, Jason. So not much to worry about. We all know about the strength of the Bills defense. Very good in pass coverage, get a little bit of pass rush, definitely get pass pressure, which is statistically just as good, even without the stats. Jordan Phillips is the one guy collecting some of those stats right now, but I mean, you're seeing Jerry Hughes get close and get there. I mean, you're seeing production out of the blitzing Taron Johnson and blitzing Trey White. But they do more of that cornerback blitz, it seems like, than they do full out blitzes or that creeper coverage where they'll send a linebacker but drop back a defensive tackle like Rex Ryan would have. So it's going to be more straight up D, more straight up cover 2, switching to man at times, depending on the game situation. So it's solid. I've had no problems with the Bills against quarterbacks. They're still not allowing still haven't allowed a 300 passer. Is it I forget the exact number where they haven't had one in like 20 to 25 games. I think it's like
Yeah,
250, 260 or something.
yeah.
Um,
That's pretty
so
cool.
it's a good stat. It's in a passing league, and they've had their bumps against against run. Miami put something on tape post the bye that Philadelphia took advantage of, that Washington did in the first half, and then just disappeared. So the Bills, for the first time, did correct it after 3 bad halves of defensive, really defensive play in general, but more run defense. They finally corrected it. And that, I mean, the Washington had nothing in the second half. At times, the score was closer than the game. The Bills just weren't capitalizing on some stuff offensively. But I mean, outside, once they figured out what they were going to do to stop Peterson and run blitz, and the game kind of felt like the Bills weren't going to lose that one, at least. So we'll see what happens in Cleveland. Baker can really give this game to the Bills easily, or he can be patient and really put some pressure on them and really take calculated shots rather than be impatient and try to hit Odell Beckham Jr. on every single play. So, which Odell hasn't been getting his target. So we'll see if they try to pressure it to him. That wouldn't be great. This shouldn't be the game that they try to go out and do that, Jason. They should stick to the run game. They should take the Jarvis Landry passes and use Odell when they can. I mean, that's the way to beat the Bills. If they're going to try to go all out pass game, deep throws, big time, picks and slants, and I mean, they're not going to win. So
No.
We'll see what Freddie Kitchens does. If he's smart, he'll run the ball and take his shots when he sees them very limitedly, and take those underneath throws to Jarvis. So we're going to see.
I would be playing with a very conservative plan if I would, and that it would probably disappoint some Browns fans, but I do think that
It's the way to get a W, though.
Their way to get a W here would be really rely on Chubb and even Hunt if he's able to do that, and find Jarvis Landry open, because I think he will find himself open quite a bit, and not force anything to OBJ and whoever else is going to be on the field. I don't think this is the time for it. I think that the Bills are a team that if the offense isn't playing well, you can beat with 17 to 20 points, and that's the way you would get it. So
Right.
I think you'd hope for your defense to play well, and that you'd just be efficient, limit the turnovers. They're -8 on the season. It's mostly because of the 12 interceptions from Baker Mayfield, and you try to keep the ball and really try to, I don't know, do the opposite of what you would do in a normal home game, I guess, against the Bills. But you would just, I think a conservative game would be really good for them to just execute, and also not get crazy amounts of penalties, which they're leading the league by far, and just as an undisciplined team that turns the ball over. I mean, that's why this team's losing, and a plan with a lot of Chubb and Landry would be the best way to avoid making those mistakes, I would say.
Right, and it's certainly not the running game that they'll get away from, too, which is weird. 803 yards from Nick Chubb, 5.2 yards in attempt, 6 touchdowns. I mean, it's boring, but at 2-6, Freddie Kitchens will be trying to keep his job and get himself back into this race with a softer schedule, and it starts beating the Bills, having that tiebreaker, and praying for a 9-7 situation that you have tiebreakers over everyone. You have a chance to get in. So it starts today or Sunday for the Bills, Jason. So we'll see if they're able to capitalize. And now if we flip to the other side of the ball, and talk about the Bills offense against the Browns defense a little bit, they have Olivier Vernon, who is going to be, looks like inactive in this one. He's got banged up at the end of the Denver game last week, who's been one of their best players with Myles Garrett. They should get back Demarius Randall, their safety. They have some bad safety issues on this team. They had to cut somebody for his bad tweets that he made, and they've had a couple other injuries. Eric Murray is supposed to be out as well. It's safety they traded for from the Chiefs. So they're really limited back there, and Demarius Randall at least gives them a presence where he's not a world beater. He is just a solid starting safety. Him and Morgan Burnett are kind of the same. They don't have much else there, though. They have Sheldrick Redwine and not a lot behind there. So it's a limited safety group. It's a limited defensive back group. Getting Greedy Williams going here. So there's going to be some wins for these receivers. Greedy's been pretty good in his limited 208, if you want to call that limited snaps, but really he was out for a while between weeks 3 and 7. So it is limited. Terrence Mitchell also plays a good amount for this team. Hasn't been playing lately, so I don't know if he's hurt. He hasn't played since week 6. Maybe since everyone's healthy, he doesn't, play a ton. But Denzel Ward now is obviously Denzel Ward and Greedy Williams are there, and TJ Carey in the slot. Is kind of the way that they roll for the most part on this team, Jason. So not a great secondary. Joe Schobert's a pretty solid middle linebacker. Plays the majority of snaps, and Mac Wilson, a rookie, hasn't been good.
Brown.
Yep. Really bad. They're bad in the back 7. Olivier Vernon's out. He's one that, like I said, one of their better players. Without him, I wouldn't call them limited on the defensive line, but without Vernon, they're not going to be the Eagles. Sheldon Richardson's always decent. Larry Ogunjobi is good in stretches, but he's kind of struggled this year at times. So there's wins there. Really they don't have a big rotation in the interior of their defensive line. That Ogunjobi and Richardson pretty much play the game so they can get worn down. They lost Daniel Akali for the year a couple games ago, really leading them to just having one backup defensive tackle in DeVore Lawrence, who doesn't play it. Didn't only play 9 snaps last week. So not going to have it there. They are going to get worn down. They're going to come out. Maybe it's going to be a team that's doesn't rotate a lot on the defensive side of the ball. And like the Bills, Garrett, pretty much plays most snaps. Vernon plays every snap, but he's out. So you're going to see a lot of Chad Thomas in this one, who has struggled. To Browns fans have really complained about that guy. Without Vernon, Jason, some depth issues, no rotation. It's a poor defense. You're going to have some players in it, some developing corners, but that's really, what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, it's another team that we're going to have the opportunity to take advantage of, really. I mean, it's the same, I think that the talent's just slightly higher than it is in Washington or in Miami, but the same depth issues, and even with the Eagles, really arise in this team, and they should really be able to get worn down, and we should be able to do something about it. But we haven't fully executed against all teams. I think the first half of Washington was a good start. And really, we probably were some converting 3rd and 4th and 1s from having a good offensive performance.
Yeah, a blowout.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to have a chance to get after Josh Allen. Just with Myles Garrett, I think Ogunjobi still has 4 sacks this year. Sheldon Richardson, they should be able to do it at times, but I think it's another team that we should be able to run the ball on if we block well. It seems like Singletary's finally, and as I said, even though it even probably went in a bigger incline than I had thought it would, with him getting a lot of the snaps in Washington, but they're making him into a starting running back by the end of the year, and I think we're probably there. And it could be another big game. The secondary, I think, has promise as far as the cornerbacks go. I hope Terrence Mitchell, Ward and Greedy are young, talented players that are prone to some problems right now. I think that it could be, I don't think that they're going to do anything that's going to severely impede what John Brown or Cole Beasley has done in past weeks. The question becomes, can we find another receiver that, factors into the game? Do we dress Duke Williams? Do we dress Robert Foster? We're going to have a full 53 at our disposal. Are we going to continue to use Andre Robertson in some of those spots, or Isaiah McKenzie? We're going to have some choices as far as that goes, but we really do need to find sort of a third player, not to mention a tight end that is going to just give us more production out of those spots, because I still think that Beasley does his things well and wins a lot of battles against slot receivers, but I do think sometimes their offense gets limited by really being beholden to such small receivers, and, only one of them being that superior athletically. I do think sometimes that it limits their game plan as far as that goes.
Yeah, it does. And I mean, the Browns are coming into this one 25.6 points per game allowed, 23rd in the NFL, 357 total yards, 18th, 141 rushing yards, or 30th in the NFL in rush D, and 216 pass, second for the first sixth. So splits aren't great. Similar breakdown that the Bills have, but less elite. They get after it a little bit. I mean, they have a 10 sack guy in Myles Garrett. But really still, limited on defense without Vernon. Ogunjobi is their second sack guy with 4. But that's their sacks right there. 17 between, for a total of 25 are right there with those 3 players, and one won't be playing. So not a ton there. Demarius Randall has 2 sacks. He's their next guy there. So they've been missing him a little bit. So without Vernon and Randall, I mean, it's really just 2 guys that can get to the quarterback. And then with a bad rush defense, they're limited. And Jason, I think the Bills red zone, we all know the Bills are number 1 in red zone offense, scoring over 71% of the time. Josh Allen's been fantastic in the fourth quarter, still is the number 1 rated fourth quarter quarterback in the NFL, and with most statistics. Lots of stuff where you put on the stat sheet and you look at the box scores and you say, well, Josh Allen's like 20 to 25th in like everything. Not playing particularly well, limiting some of his pass interceptions, but still fumbling. People love to use the fumble stat, but I don't really care unless you lose them. It's still lucky to recover a fumble, just like it's lucky to recover one on defense. He's only lost 3 of those, so until he loses all 10, we can bring that up. But inside the 20, Josh Allen has a second highest completion percentage at 70%. Second highest completion percentage inside the 10 at 75%. So he's finding those, and highest passer rating in the fourth quarter at 113.3 and 4 game-winning drives, Jason. So it's the difference. I mean, he's playing better football than Baker Mayfield, regardless of who you have rated where. The stats don't lie. The records don't lie, at least in that category. And everything points to Josh continuing to getting better, and Baker Mayfield's regressed. I'd rather be where the Bills are at right now with this thing. Even though Baker was my quarterback 1, and I still see hope from him, but the emotions get in the way for him, in the way that Josh Rosen was supposed to, kind of the opposite, where Josh Rosen was said to not care, be like, a little bit more cold-faced, and Baker Mayfield's, the emotions are getting to him. He's changing his beard style and his clothes and
I'm not
everything.
doing anything into that.
What?
I don't care that he shaves twice on game day. I actually liked his response.
I don't either, but I mean, I don't know that I care.
I think he's letting things get to him. He's facing adversity for the first time. He wasn't expected of anything last year. His only other opportunity to start, his Oklahoma team won like everything. Like, it's, I don't know. Yeah, he's got some challenges and some growing up to do, but I'm not worried about if we played them 16 times. Like, I think we'd be 12-4. I'm worried about the one game that they can blow up with all of these players. If Miles Sanders can do it, I don't see why Nick Chubb, who has like a consistent time doing it this year, could figure it out, or that they can't get one game plan right. Like, I do think consistently, I think with the team, with their coaching and with their depth, yeah, this team's probably 6-10, but that doesn't make me any less worried, because Washington's going to be 2-14 and Miami's going to be 2-14, and that Eagles team we lost to might be 8-8. Like, I just get a little worried about players that have the capability of doing something special, and I do think they have a few of them, and that includes Baker Mayfield, even if he hasn't quite shown it lately.
Yeah,
and I worry about those teams. I'll probably worry about the Jets the second time we play them, honestly.
Going for the playoffs in Week 17, I mean, of course we're gonna all be worried. Probably gonna most likely at least need to take the win in your for sure in type of scenario.
And I mean, just going back to that, I said before the year and said several times that you're going to see the difference, and I wasn't positive I was going to be right, but the difference between how teams build teams and how they build them on paper and how they build them with signing 20 veterans. And there was teams that built the way that the Jets and the Browns did, with a couple splash players and really ignoring the offensive line and ignoring defensive depth whatsoever. And then there's a team like Bills that signed 20 offensive linemen and, filled in their defense when they were already returning like 10 starters, taking the one starter that retired and going and spending the 9th overall pick on them. There's a big difference between that and then spending $20 million on C.J. Mosley or trading for Odell Beckham. And, I think that the time has proven out that those teams that build slower, build with more veterans, or try to fill more positions, or actually accept that depth as a real thing, those teams end up working out more times than not.
Right. Yeah, you're right. And last thing on this topic is kind of break down the comparison of the two, which will be happening just due to the fact that the Browns could pick between Allen, Mayfield, or Darnold. And I mean, at least at this stage, I think at least with those three players, and throw in Rosen, but he doesn't matter. I think Allen to the top 10 pick quarterback debate is winning at this stage, especially record and total overall performance. Baker Mayfield, 58.7 completion percentage, which is 2 points less than Josh Allen's. He's been sacked twice, and they have the same yards factoring in passing and rushing at this stage. So, and Baker's got the 12 picks. Josh has has the 10, 12 touchdowns for Allen to 7. Especially, and then the regression is concerning. If he started out this way and then had the year he kind of flipped, everyone would be fine with it. But the regression is crazy to me, that you have that type of regression in this thing, and basically got to pick your head coach on top of it. So that's kind of the concerning part to me in this whole ordeal. There's extra the under completion percentage issues starting to pop up, and he's been sacked more than Allen. So I don't know. I mean, at this stage, I think Josh has got the beat. And then to kind of wrap that up, a lot of people think, especially in Cleveland, that Josh Allen has the perfect situation to go to Cleveland with a 6-2 team and show them why they should have drafted him first overall. And they feel that he has a chip on his shoulder to saying, hey, my team's 6-2. I'm playing better football. I'm going to show you, Cleveland, especially to Cleveland in this case, that you missed on me. And I think that this could be a Josh Allen game, Jason. I don't think I predicted a big Josh Allen game, but I'm sniffing at one right now.
Yeah, I'm still deciding.
Okay.
I went into this podcast ready to pick the Browns because I've only picked against the Bills once this year, which I guess isn't that bad. We're 6-2.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Is it prediction time?
I think it's prediction time.
Go
wrap
first.
This thing up. We had an action-packed show. First before prediction time, guys. Shout out to Cover One, premium content, everything they do. The show is presented by Cover One, Eric Turner, Greg Thompson, and Aaron Quinn over there. Cover One Buffalo show. They can make Gary's on there occasionally. Their guests that they have. Great stuff. Check out the Gridiron podcast by Jack McCurry, by the Browns that I was just on yesterday, kind of breaking it down to them. You listen to their show and you might skew your prediction toward the Bills, hearing the Browns fans say, like, we've had 8 weeks to be good, and they're just not good. They're just not good offensively like they're supposed to be. So check that out over there. My guys do a good job over there. One of the better Browns podcasts. So if you want to hear kind of what they have to say from the Dogland, I think is what they call themselves, the 1085 Gridiron podcast over there by Dogland. So check that out by Anthony Jokey and Jack McCurry. But shout out once again, premium content, download it, get all this stuff from Cover One, Slack group, fantasy sports, exclusive content. You get to be in the live chat for the Cover One Buffalo show, all that kind of stuff. And it keeps all of us going. So, make sure you check out that premium content and like our show everywhere that you listen, whether it's iTunes, whether it's YouTube, whether it's anywhere that you get your podcasts. Please give us that 5-star. It really helps. Really helps us out a lot. Okay, Jason, it's prediction time. Start with you. What do you have? So that means if you've only picked against them once, was that Patriots, right?
Yep.
Okay. Picked them in the Eagles game, right?
I picked the Bills in the Eagles game.
So you're 6 and so are you 7-1? Yeah, you're 7-1.
I guess I'm 7.
Yeah, me too. Okay. What do you got then? Let's hear it. Let's see if you can go to 8-1.
Oh man, there's I just have this gut feeling that we can lose. I'm just about a team that knows that its season is over if they lose this game, that
Right.
has a decent enough talent. It's one thing if the Washington was 2-6 and you just knew that we were a better team. We are a better team than the Browns. They're at home. 24-17 Bills.
Okay. All right. That's fair enough.
Taking the Bills still.
Okay. 24-17. I think my guys over at the Browns podcast gave me a perspective. They've been 0-3 at home, worried about Elam coming there to say, like, you had a chance at me, you picked Baker. I think that matters to players more than we think it does. You're right with the one factor of the Eagles kind of were, they lose to the Bills, they're pretty much done. Your season, you never want your season to be over at this stage. It's different for the Redskins, Dolphins, Bengals, who are pretty much tanking.
Yep.
So you don't have that factor in those games. Really, the last time and was the Titans game where you played someone that could have been competitive beside the Eagles. So big win there in Tennessee. I'm still saying that that's a pretty decent win. I'm going with the Bills 27 and the Browns 17. I think Josh Allen has a really solid football game. They run the ball really well. They're not going to be happy that they're underdog at 6-2 to a 2-6 team that just lost to Denver. They're not going to be super happy about that. They're going to go out and take advantage of that. I think Josh Allen has a little bit of showing what they missed on him too. They're going to score late again. Jason, I think it's going to be 27-10, 27-17, kind of in the fourth quarter. That's what I have. And feels to me like this could be a game that does get to the 7th win mark, which is usually a pretty good indicator of the playoffs, especially with the schedule. That would leave basically the Cowboys game and the Ravens game as freebies, if you want to call them that, really, where you can lose those and be okay. Is that kind of how you look at it?
Yeah, I think this one makes a big difference in the AFC. But yeah, as far as those go, yeah, just because I still consider Cleveland. I just never took them out of that sort of in that group of those teams of the games that I was really worried about, or even, was less than 50% on us winning. But yeah, I'm a little more than 50% on us winning it. And now, yeah, that makes Thanksgiving a lot less important.
It does. It depends if you're still going after the division. So if you're going after the division real quick to wrap it up, the Denver game's the least important game on the schedule. If you're going after the AFC wild card 5th spot, the Dallas game's the least important because common opponents is the first tiebreaker. Believe it or not, Jason, if the Bills beat the Broncos, they cannot pass the Patriots with a tie scenario outside of a loss to Miami by New England, which not going to happen. So, which would mean the Bills 5-1 in division, they'd be 4-2. So that's not going to happen. The Bills would have to not only beat New England, but if they beat Denver, they can't be tied because they are 2-0 in common opponents, which would mean New England would have to go 1-1 in common opponents, which would mean the Bills would be ahead of them in record if you do the math. So in other words, if they beat Denver, the odds that they can be tied are almost non-existent. So that's what the stats show. If they lose to Kansas City or Houston, New England here in the coming weeks, the Bills cannot be tied with them because the common opponents would skew to New England because the Bills would beat the Titans and would beat the Broncos. So that's just a little playoff nugget to wrap your head around as you're watching this Browns game, which is an important game. Really weird to think about, but common opponents aren't as important as NFC games if you're going for a division title. So that's the Dallas game's actually more important than the Denver game, not just because of Dallas is good, but because it matters against New England. So what we're rooting for to beat the Browns. What we're rooting for from New England, they can beat Kansas City. It's not the end of the world. You're going to have to go and beat New England in New England and probably be 13-3, Jason. What do you have New England at?
Yeah, I think they'll probably lose 3 games.
Okay. 3, right. If they lose to the Bills, or would the Bills be 12-4 to end the year?
I don't know. They're going to go 13-3, however they do it.
Okay.
Flip it.
Okay.
If they beat us, they'll go and lose the last game. Like,
I think they've, like the Bills, they've struggled in their two good opponents, which was the Buffalo game and the Baltimore game. They now have Philly, Dallas, Kansas City, Houston. I don't know. I don't know that I think they're going to be 12-4, and Bills have real opportunity at the division. So that's why I'm bringing up, I'm bringing up the tiebreaker scenario. So we'll get into that in future podcasts as we get closer to this, but let's take care of the Browns. Really important to go to 5-1 in the AFC. Kind of, first and foremost, you want to lock up that fifth wild card, and then we can talk about how important these games are and what's important for tiebreaker situations, Jason. So
lock it up.
We're going to lock this up. Starts with the Browns. It's definitely Browns, Miami, Denver slew of games here. You need to take 3 of these games and lock this playoff thing up. And then you can really get into this tiebreaker discussion. So, Jason, we got a lot to talk about next week. Both picked the Bills in this one, even though I know you wanted to take the Browns. I know you did.
It's gonna be close. Your Bills win is the Browns scoring at the end and pulling within 10. Mine is a 17-17 game where Josh Allen has to pull it out. Fourth quarter red zone.
So you're more going with the odds of what has happened recently.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if we're losing for a decent chunk of the game.
Okay, I'm going with the opposite, where they look good for a stretch. I'm going to finally get this right and going with the Giants game finally here, where the score is, I guess, closer than the game was, 27-14 in that one. So, Jason, I'm kind of predicting that kind of game here. I think the Bills can do it on the road. They've been good on the road, 3-0 on the road. The Browns are 0-3. So their kryptonite's been at home. The Bills have been good on the road. They've been getting good fan support, and hopefully you Bills fans get out there to check this thing out, though. Thanks for tuning into this action-packed edition. We'll catch you next week, hopefully talking about a victory and a 7-2 record to really catapult into the playoffs, which would be right in front of them, because this Cleveland game was one of 5 or 6 that a lot of people thought were going to be their hardest games. So from the Kevin and Jason show, I'm Kevin. That's Jason.
Thanks, guys.